Good evening. I want you to take a moment and just feel this room. Feel the presence of the hundreds of souls gathered here. Each of you brought a story with you tonight. In fact, you brought a library. You carry the story of the argument you had this morning, the story of the first time you fell in love, the story of a loss that carved you open, a story of a quiet joy you told no one. Right now, in this space, there are a million unheard stories, shimmering in the air between us, and the most common human ache is the fear that they will remain unheard, that we will live and die and no one will have truly known the story of us. What if I told you there is a language, a framework for understanding the human experience that gives us a name for this sacred energy, the energy that hears those stories, not just with the ears, but with the soul? Well, that system is called human design. Now, I know for some, systems like this can feel like putting people in boxes, labels, and you might be right to be skeptical, but I want you to imagine it differently. Think of it not as a box, but as a key, a language that helps us script a new conversation about how we are wired, how we are connected, and how we heal. At the heart of this language are hubs of energy we call centers, and flowing through them are 64 archetypal themes, energies, or gates. And I'm not here to give you a lecture about all 64. I'm here tonight to talk about just one. But it is, I believe, the one our noisy, disconnected world is perhaps starving for. It's called simply Gate 13. Some call it the gate of the listener. I sometimes prefer call it the gate of the witness. It's the energy of the sacred confidant, the tribal historian, the keeper of the human heart's library. It resides in the center of our being that governs our identity and our love and our very direction in life. Its purpose isn't just to hear words. Its purpose is to create fellowship, to gather the threads of our individual tales and weave them into the tapestry of shared humanity. Now, we all have access to this energy. Every single one of us is in a lifelong relationship with it. For some, it's a defined, consistent part of their nature. For others, it's a potential they learn to call upon. But how this energy shows up in our lives is determined by what I call the 3 sliders. Imagine a mixing board for your soul. The first slider is intensity. How strongly do you feel this pull to listen? Is it a gentle whisper or a deafening roar? The second slider is frequency. How often does this energy show up? Is it a daily reality or a role you step into on rare but important occasions? And the third, most crucial slider of all is the quality slider. This is the spectrum of an expression of this theme, from its most destructive shadow to its most divine grace. And this is where our real work begins. Because before we can celebrate the beauty of this gate, we must have the courage to look at how it breaks. To understand its unhealthy state is to understand the root of so much of our modern suffering. The shadow of Gate 13 is a single devastating word: discord. It's the beautiful gift of listening turned inward on itself, creating a war within. The unhealthy state of this energy doesn't begin with how you listen to others. It begins with how you listen to yourself. In its shadow, the gate of the witness becomes a prison of the past. It's the person who cannot escape their own story. They don't just remember their pain, they replay it. Their mind is a library of grievances, where every book is a grudge, every chapter a regret. They are haunted. Life hasn't been processed. It has simply been accumulated. It is, quite literally, an undigested life. Think of a child born with this sensitive listening design, a child who feels everything. If that child grows up in an environment where they are told, "Oh, you're too sensitive, stop crying, your feelings don't matter that much," what happens? They learn that their inner world is a source of shame. Their gift of deep feeling becomes a liability. So they turn the volume down on their own heart. The discord begins. As an adult, they may not trust their feelings, or they may become profoundly pessimistic because their earliest data taught them that life hurts and no one will be here or there to hear it. This internal discord then becomes a contagion. It spills out into the world. The person who hasn't made peace with their own story cannot hold space for another's. This is where we find the archetype of the emotional dumping ground. The person who listens not with presence, but with a porous, broken boundary. They absorb everyone's pain, every secret, every trauma, but with a porous, broken boundary. They absorb everyone's pain, everyone's secret, everyone's trauma, because on some level, they believe it's their job, but they don't know how to process it. So they become a walking container of psychic refuse, growing heavier, more resentful, more exhausted, and with every confidence shared. They give and give until they have lost themselves, their story drowned out by the noise of 1,000 others. And sometimes the discord turns even more toxic. In another unhealthy environment, a child might learn that listening is a tool for survival. They learn to gather secrets not for connection, but for leverage. As an adult, this becomes the gossip. The person who listens with voyeuristic ear, who collects the tender vulnerabilities of others and uses them to create drama or secure their own position. They betray the sacred trust of the witness, sowing division where there should be fellowship. They use stories to break people apart, not bring them together. This isn't just psychological, it's physical. The ancients knew this. Modern science is just catching up. When we carry unresolved stories, our own or others, we are in a state of chronic stress. That's cortisol, that's inflammation, that's tightness in your gut, the ache in your shoulders from a weight that is not yours to carry. But what happens when we decide we can no longer live in the state of discord? What happens when we choose to turn the dial on the quality slider? Well, that is the beginning of an alchemy. It's a journey from a prison of pain to a place of wisdom. I have a poem that tries to capture this shift. It's called The Alchemist's Ear. The shattered tale, a shard of leaden gray, you bring to me at the closing of the day. A heavy thing, a bitterness and blame. You speak its edges, whisper its raw name. I do not fix, I do not rush the mend. I offer only silence like a friend. My heart, a crucible, holds what you pour, the searing heat of what was and what was before. And in this quiet, reverent holding space, a subtle miracle begins to take its place. The lead of sorrow, dense and cold and deep, begins to glow, to warm, to stir from sleep. The dross of anger burns away to ash. The flash of judgment turns to just a flash. And what remains when all the smoke has cleared? A single, gleaming drop, a truth revered. A thread of gold, a lesson dearly won, beneath the light of a forgiving sun. It isn't magic what my listening's for. It's just to prove your pain is not a door that locks you in. It is a gate, you see, that opens out to what you're meant to be. So that movement from lead to gold is the journey into the gift of Gate 13, which we'll call discernment. Discernment is the ability to listen to a story, your own or someone else's, and hear not just the noise, but the music. It's the capacity to sift through the data of experience and find the essential truth. A discerning person can hear a friend's angry rant and understand the river of hurt flowing beneath it. They can look back at their own greatest failure and say, that was brutal. And that is where I learned compassion. That is where I found my strength. This is where Gate 13 finds its ultimate partner. In the architecture of human design, it forms a channel with Gate 33, the gate of retreat and remembering. Together they create the channel of the witness. It's the design of the prodigal son. Think of that story. A son goes out, lives a messy experiential life full of mistakes and learning. He then returns. Gate 13 is the energy of the father who sees him coming from a long way off, runs to him, holds him in embrace of unconditional acceptance. He just listens. He holds the story. Gate 33, this partnership, now that's the energy of the son who, after being received, retreats to process it all. And when the time is right, he emerges to share the wisdom of his journey. Let me tell you what I learned out there. When this channel is healthy, it is the most beautiful feedback loop of healing, perhaps on the planet. Experiences gathered, held in love, reflected upon in solitude, and then shared as wisdom for the good of the tribe. But when it's unhealthy, when the listening is driven by discord, Gate 13 gathers toxic secrets, and Gate 33 weaponizes them as gossip. It's the high school rumor mill. It's the political smear campaign. It's the family that never heals because it uses the past as a weapon in the present. It's a broken loop of pain. Cultivating healthy discernment is the key. It allows us to become the wise elder in our own life, the compassionate historian in our own heart. And when we truly master this gift, we unlock its highest possible expression. The divine grace of Gate 13 is empathy. And I don't mean sympathy. Sympathy stands on the edge of the pit and says, oh, that looks awful down there. Empathy climbs down into the pit and says, I'm here. It's the capacity to be so present with another human being that the illusion of separation dissolves. It's the recognition, as the writer C.S. Lewis put it, when one person says to another, quote, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one." That moment is the birth of friendship and the end of isolation. The ultimate model of this kind of empathy is, well, for me, the person of Jesus Christ. Think of the stories. Think of his stories. He didn't just heal people from a distance. He touched them. He listened to them. He wept with them. He descended below all things so that he could perfectly understand our sorrows. He is the ultimate embodiment of a love that says, I am willing to know your pain as if it were my own. This is not a passive quality. It's a world-changing force. Imagine what our culture would look like if we dialed up the quality of this energy. Imagine leaders who listened to the lessons of history before making policy. Imagine social media platforms where the goal was not to shout, but to understand. Imagine families where children felt safe to tell their truth, to tell how they felt, knowing it would be met with empathy, not judgment, breaking cycles of generational trauma forever. This energy exists in the world. We see it in the quiet heroism of a hospice nurse. sitting with a patient in their final hours, witnessing their life story. We see it in the work of people like Brandon Stanton of the Humans of New York, who listens to strangers on the street and reveals the profound poetry of their ordinary lives, creating a global community of empathy. We heard it in the gentle voice of Fred Rogers, who taught a generation of children that their feelings were mentionable and manageable. He famously said, quote, "Listening is where love begins. Listening to ourselves and then to our neighbors." And he was right. The gate of the witness is not about being a passive receptacle for stories. It's the active, courageous, creative work of love. It's the energy that looks at a person and says, "You are a story worth hearing. You have a seat at the campfire of humanity. Your voice matters." That is the role of the Healthy Gate 13 in our communities. They are the friend you can call when your world falls apart, because you know they won't try to fix you. They will just be there. They are the unofficial historian of your friend group, the one who remembers the moments that defined you. They are the peacemaker in the family, the one who can hear both sides of an argument and find a thread of common ground. They create belonging. I like to share one last poem with you. It is, in a way, a vow, a personal prayer for anyone who wants to cultivate this energy in their own life. It's called The Vow of the Listener. Let me not be the fixer of the world, for I do not have the plans. Let me not be the judge of the world, for I do not have the scales. Let me only be a quiet shore where the tides of grief can break, and the storyteller worn and tired can unload a heavy ache. Let my heart be a wide and silent field where the seeds of a secret fall, and trust that they are safe with me. I will hold and witness all. And when the telling has been done and the quiet returns once more, let them walk away with feeling lighter than they'd ever felt before. For the greatest gift that I can give, the holiest work I do, is to listen till they hear themselves and know their own heart is true. So, this talk, my very presence here tonight, has been an attempt to practice that vow, to listen to the silent questions in this room, to hold a space where maybe, just maybe, you could hear your own story a little differently. The work of Gate 13, that theme in the human experience, is the work of turning down the noise of the world and turning up the music of the human soul. It is the understanding that every person you meet is a sacred text, and you have the honor of being invited to read a page. So, I invite you to leave here tonight and become an alchemist of the ear. Listen to your partner, your child, your colleague, not just for the words, but for the story beneath the words. Listen to your own life. Hear the lessons in your scars. Discern the wisdom in your wounds. Because those million stories shimmering in this room are not a burden. They are invitations. They are invitations to connect, to heal, and to build a world where no one ever has to fear that their story will die inside them unheard. This is the legacy of the listener, and it is the most beautiful work, perhaps, that we can do. And with that, thank you and good night.